Hi, I'm Rocket. Welcome to Whiteboarding with Rocket. In this session, I'm going to talk about Telestration. Now, Telestration is the process of being able to draw on your video output, particularly useful in things like conference calls or broadcasts. And I found this to be incredibly illuminating and powerful in virtual meetings, as I'm able to annotate things right there on the screen and people can look at my video and they see me drawing. And as you can see here, this is a version of this that I recorded earlier, just to give you an idea what I'm talking about. Now, the way I've done this in the past is I use an iPad running an app called Notability. And inside of Notability, you set your output to be the HDMI output. And then you draw on a note that has a black background. And then you send that to a video switch. In my case, I use the Blackmagic ATEM Mini video switch series. And in that video switch, you make some setting changes. And one of the setting changes is you create an upstream key that is set to Luma key. Now there's two types generally of keys. There's the chroma key, which is your chromatic versions, which you want to do a green screen key out. That's the way you do it. And if you do a Luma key, it's luminosity. And so everything that is black is keyed out, and all that shows up is the writing that I'm doing in Notability. And that's really great. And so think of keying, just very quickly, is the bottom layer is your program out, so your video camera out. And then above that is this key, and it gets laid on top of it. And that's how they get things like lower thirds and green screen effects and things like that in broadcast. Now, the other element to this, what I was doing before, was having a camera that would plug into the Blackmagic ATEM. And so this is a more complicated, a bit more of an investment, because to get a camera that has an HDMI output, clean feed output, is a bit more of an investment. You can get from used ones for less than $500 with a nice nice lens, detachable lens, and look pretty darn good. It really ups your game. But you also have to have an arm and a stand and all these other things, and a dummy battery to keep it powered. And it's not just like getting a Logitech Brio webcam, plugging it in and off you go. So I will say at this point, I am planning on doing another one of these videos that uses OBS, which is Open Broadcast Software. And that's an open source free version of a software-based video switcher. And you can take your webcam and other inputs into OBS and do the same thing with keying. Now, it's less investment of money. It is more an investment of time. I found OBS to be mostly okay. Every so often, it does do some weird things on me. And so I've stuck with the Blackmagic side of things. And I just happen to have a camera with an HDMI out that I use. So, end of that part. Let's move on to some of the improvements I've made. Now, one of the things here with this one, with the Notability, is when I'm drawing on the screen, I'm drawing on the iPad, I don't have what is showing on my screen on the iPad. So it's just a black piece of black thing, and I'm drawing with my Apple Pencil on top of that. So I can't see how it's showing up as it's going out. So that's one of the downsides of that. One of the upsides is all the things I take in Notability stay in Notability. And so I get, if I do meeting notes or things like that, I have access to it. And I mention that because I have created a way to get that program feed out of the system into an app that I can draw on. This is incredibly powerful. You can see an example here where I am drawing on top of my video feed, and I can see this. And then I can switch to things like a computer input. So I could have my computer output, I should say, going into the video switch, and then voila, I can draw on top of the screen. I could do photos, I could do all sorts of really amazing things. This is pretty powerful, and let me talk you through it. It's a lot more complicated, and this is complicated enough. It seems simple here, but there is a lot to do to set this up. So let's talk through this setup. This is how to get program feedback into the iPad where you're doing the Telestration. So you have your camera input, the HDMI into the video switch. You've got your computer going into the video switch, and then you have an NDI decoder that goes into the video switch as 3 inputs. Now I'm going to say that I'm using the ATEM Mini Smallest version of the ATEM Mini video switch. It's less than $300. It has 4 HDMI inputs and 1 HDMI output. It also has a USB-C output, which can be seen by your computer as a webcam, and that's important for this. The idea is the output, that HDMI output, gets plugged into an NDI encoder. Okay, in the iPad, you're running this app called Video Pencil. I think it's about $30, $40. Now, Video Pencil has a setting in it in which you can say the background that you're drawing on is an NDI source. And so for this, your NDI source is going to be the program feed from the video switch. So whatever source you've chosen here is going to get sent out and become the background on your iPad. Then there's a setting that says send output from Video Pencil over NDI. And there's a second setting which says only send alpha channel. So only send what's being drawn as the output. And that's what ends up inside of that input. So you see a black background and just what's being drawn. And this is where you say take that and make it a Luma key on top of the program. So it's pretty interesting, right? Now you take the USB-C, you plug it into your video conference computer, and you join your Zoom call or whatever video conferencing solution you're using, and you can draw on top of it. Very powerful stuff. Now the downside of this, there's a handful of downsides. One of them is it's complex, right? So you're now dealing with NDI and there's additional investment to make. It's powerful investment, it's additional investment. The other one is the notes that you're taking are just, they're gone, right? So you draw on the thing and you hit clear and it doesn't get saved. And so that's one of those things you give up. So what I've done is I've made both of these possible on my system. And the way that I do that is I take the iPad output and I put it into the video switch as the fourth input. And then I can, using programmatically, there's ways to do this, where I can hit a button on my Stream Deck, which is running software called Companion. Again, this is more complex, so I'm not going to go too far down that rabbit hole just yet. If you're interested, let me know. So let's talk about the investments required for this. So I'm going to assume you have an iPad that has an HDMI adapter and you have some kind of pen or pencil device that you can draw on the iPad. Also that you have a camera that has clean HDMI output. Now one of the things you might be able to do here is there's lots of used cameras out there that are very good, but you could also get a used iPhone or any kind of phone that has the ability to output HDMI cleanly. That's another option as well. So, but you have to make sure it goes through HDMI because it's going into the ATEM Mini. Now the ATEM Mini is about $300. Today there's two versions. There's one with 4 inputs and then there's a bigger one that has a lot of other features that has 8 inputs, but it's dramatically different. It's $1,200, so the big one. So that's why I'm saying I'm working on making sure this works with just the ATEM Mini. There's an NDI encoder and an NDI decoder. Now the ones I found are just under $200. It's the same device that you can flip the setting to be encoder and decoder. Now I'm just starting to use these, so I'm gonna have, if there's any feedback that I get, it's been fairly stable. It's been running for a week now and it's been doing just fine. But if I find any instability, I will append this. And because the other ones that are from like Bird Dog and some of the other big NDI providers, they're more of an investment, they're more single purpose, and you know they don't have as many options, but they are very reliable and they're used in a lot of production things. So those are the two things. And then the Video Pencil software is about $40 on the App Store, and those guys are very active in the communities around video production and event production, and they're always improving that solution. So that's how much. And you know, what I don't have on here are cables, any mounting arms, any other things that you would need to do to adapt to using an HDMI camera, things like that. So, you know, it is a bit of there's a bit more that probably would be invested in this. I just happen to have a lot of that stuff handy, so I didn't inventory it yet. With that, I'm Rocket. This has been another Whiteboarding with Rocket.